Pope Francis, the revolutionary leader of the Catholic Church, died on Easter Monday at the age of 88, just hours after appearing before thousands of faithful in St. Peter's Square. The news sent shockwaves across the globe as pilgrims and journalists rushed toward Vatican City, many openly weeping in the streets of Rome. How could the Pope, who had just blessed crowds and delivered his Easter message, be gone so suddenly? No one saw this coming, not even his closest advisors. What makes this death all the more shocking is the timing. Just 24 hours before his passing, Francis sat before tens of thousands of Catholics, offering blessings despite his frail condition, though unable to walk, and relying on aides to deliver his message. The Pope raised his hand to bless babies and waved to the faithful as he was driven through the crowds. His final public words condemned the great thirst for death in global conflicts and called for peace in Gaza and Ukraine, a message that would become his last testament to the world, Vatican officials confirmed. His death occurred at 7:35 a.m. on Easter Monday, sending the Catholic Church into unprecedented mourning during what should have been a season of celebration. What few outsiders knew was that Francis had been battling severe respiratory issues since February, when both lungs showed signs of pneumonia, a condition particularly dangerous for someone who had part of one lung removed as a young man. In Argentina, the speed of his decline stunned even his personal physician, who had cleared him for the Easter celebrations, believing the Pope had weeks, if not months, remaining. Instead, Francis reportedly retired to his simple quarters at the Vatican guest house after the festivities and never awoke. Cardinal Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, was summoned in the early morning hours when Francis's breathing became labored and was present for the Pope's final moments. From nightclub bouncer to revolutionary pope whore, Mario Bergoglio's journey to becoming Pope Francis broke every mold of papal tradition. Born in Buenos Aires to Italian immigrants fleeing fascism, his early life couldn't have been further from Vatican expectations. Chemical technician, and even had a girlfriend he once described as making him question his vocation. When he was elected Pope in 2013, the shockwaves were immediate. He became the first non-European pontiff in nearly 1,300 years, the first from the Americas, and the first Jesuit to occupy the throne of St. Peter. But what truly defined Francis wasn't where he came from. It was how completely he transformed. What it meant to be Pope. From his first day, Francis rejected the trappings of papal luxury. He refused to live in the ornate papal apartments, choosing instead the modest Vatican guest house where he could eat with ordinary clergy and staff. He carried his own luggage, paid his own hotel bills, and wore simple white vestments without the elaborate embroidery of his predecessors, even his choice of name, Francis. After the Saint of the Poor signaled his intentions to remake the papacy. Throughout his 11-year reign, Francis consistently prioritized the marginalized over tradition. He washed the feet of female Muslim prisoners, embraced a man with severe disfigurement in St. Peter's Square, installed showers for the homeless near the Vatican, and invited refugees to dine at his table. His papacy became defined by the phrase he repeated most often, "Who am I to judge?" But his revolutionary approach earned him powerful enemies within the Church. Conservative cardinals publicly questioned his teachings, especially his more welcoming stance toward divorced Catholics and the LGBTQ community. Some even accused him of heresy, charges that Francis met with characteristic calm, once remarking, "It is good to be criticized. I always learn from it." The final traditions Francis changed the death of a pope has historically triggered elaborate ceremonies unchanged for centuries, until Francis. Traditionally, when a pope dies, the Vatican Camerlengo Chamberlain enters the papal chambers to verify the death by tapping the pope's forehead 3 times with a silver hammer, calling his baptismal name. When there's no response, the Camerlengo announces, "The pope is truly dead." This ritual begins a meticulously choreographed process. The pope's fisherman's ring, symbol of papal authority, is destroyed. The body is embalmed within 24 hours and displayed on an ornate raised platform called a catafalque in St. Peter's Basilica, allowing the faithful to pay respects. Popes are traditionally buried in 3 nested coffins: cypress, symbolizing humanity; lead sealed with the papal seal; and oak, symbolizing dignity. But Francis, consistent with his lifelong rejection of pomp, rewrote these traditions. Vatican sources revealed that Francis had approved plans years ago for a simpler funeral and burial. Instead of 3 coffins, he chose a single wooden coffin lined with zinc. He eliminated the tradition of displaying his body on a catafalque, instructing that he remain inside the coffin with just the lid removed for mourners. Perhaps most telling was his rejection of the traditional, elaborate papal funeral mass. Francis left instructions that his ceremony should be simple, solemn, but not ostentatious, a dramatic departure from the spectacle that marked previous papal funerals. One Vatican insider revealed that Francis had even requested minimal flowers and decorations, saying the money would be better spent on the poor. Breaking centuries of tradition, Francis's final resting place, in his most striking break with tradition, Francis will become the first pope in over a century not to be buried in the Vatican grottos beneath St. Peter's Basilica. Instead, he chose the Basilica of St. Mary Major as his final resting place, one of Rome's 4 major Papal basilicas located in the heart of the city. This unprecedented decision reflects Francis's lifelong devotion to Mary and his desire to remain connected to ordinary Romans, even in death. Unlike the Vatican grottos, which require special permission to visit, St. Mary Major stands in a bustling neighborhood, accessible to all who wish to pay respects. From cardinals to the homeless people Francis so often championed. Vatican historians note that this choice aligns perfectly with Francis's conception of the Church as belonging to the people rather than the hierarchy. The basilica itself holds special significance. Francis visited it before and after every international trip, praying before the ancient icon of Mary, known as Salus Populi, Romani Protectress of the Roman people. The specific burial site will be a small chapel in the basilica's left transept that Francis himself renovated during his papacy. Sources close to the late pontiff reveal he chose this location so that ordinary people could come and pray without ceremony or difficulty, a final gesture of accessibility from a pope who constantly pushed the Church beyond its walls. World leaders react to the loss of a global moral voice as news of Francis's death spread. Tributes poured in from around the world, crossing political and religious boundaries. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen noted how he inspired millions far beyond the Catholic Church with his humility and love for the less fortunate. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, despite her political differences with Francis on immigration, called him a friend who asked the world for the courage to change direction. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who had met with the Pope just hours before his death, appeared visibly shaken as he spoke to reporters. His heart goes out to millions of Christians worldwide who loved him. Even leaders of non-Christian faiths offered tributes, with Grand Imam Ahmad al-Tayyib of Al-Azhar calling Francis a true brother who worked tirelessly for interfaith harmony. The Archbishop of York, Stephen C. This human quality was perhaps best captured by a homeless man interviewed outside St. Peter's Square, who told reporters through tears, "He was the only one who saw us. He made us feel human." What united these tributes was recognition of Francis's moral clarity on issues from climate change, acknowledged that even when they disagreed with him, they respected his consistency and courage. Francis never wavered in condemning what he called the globalization of indifference toward the poor and marginalized, a message that resonated far beyond Catholic circles. The Conclave, who will follow the revolutionary, the death of Pope Francis, now triggers one of the world's most ancient and secretive processes, the Papal Conclave. After a 9-day mourning period, the College of Cardinals will gather in Rome to elect Francis's successor. They will enter the Sistine Chapel, where they remain sequestered until they elect a new pope by a 2/3 majority. When a decision is reached, white smoke will billow from the chapel's chimney, and the famous announcement, Habemus Papam, "We have a pope," will ring out across St. Peter's Square, his first blessing to the city and the world. The cardinals now face an extraordinary challenge, following a pope who transformed the papacy itself. Francis appointed nearly 70% of the current cardinal electors, many sharing his vision of a more inclusive, decentralized church focused on serving the marginalized, yet powerful conservative factions remain, creating the potential for a deeply divided conclave. Vatican analysts identify several frontrunners. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagal from the Philippines shares Francis's focus on the poor and wool.